for joining us. Today's just an open Q&A, but we do have some announcements, so we'll go ahead and get started. Let's see. I just wanted, because we are all education, wanted to call out the Microsoft Reimagine event last week. So if you didn't catch this event, it is on YouTube. You can click the link at the bottom there. It'll take you to our blog post, which was a summary of the event. But essentially, it was very AI heavy, of course, in Microsoft fashion these days. But we released a lot of great content. Specifically, I wanted to call out the Microsoft Education AI Toolkit. So if you are a district or institution looking to get started with AI and just wrestling with some of those questions on how and what are some of the right processes, what are the resources at your disposal, Microsoft just created this toolkit. It's like 90-something pages long, full of great content to help you on your journey there. So I think everyone will find that beneficial. A few other key pieces, again, all AI centered, but we now have a special report, which is kind of a compendium to that toolkit. We have a prompt lab, which will help instructors utilize generative AI to create lesson plans within Minecraft. So how do you craft the right prompt to generate a lesson plan that will give you good results within Minecraft education? I think that's a genius idea. So we've now got that prompt lab. Updates to learning accelerators. So if you haven't seen our reading progress and reading coach, I guess solutions, really. They're called learning accelerators across the board, but we have predominantly had these solutions embedded inside of Teams as part of Teams for Education, and you could really only access this through Teams assignments. So if your district isn't utilizing Teams assignments, if you have a full-fledged LMS or using another solution out there, you may not have been leveraging Reading Coach, which is part of your licensing today, but we've actually decoupled some of that from Teams assignments. So we now have Reading Coach as a standard web app. You can get it from the store or the Windows Store itself. So just a few call outs there, but then another really exciting announcement is that we now have Microsoft Defender for Endpoint for students. We have a discounted SKU for A5 customers. So there's still a cost. There's no student use benefit with Defender for Endpoint for students. There's still a cost associated there, but it's drastically reduced. So wanted to make sure that you are aware of those announcements. But again, that link at the bottom should give you more details. And the next big thing is we made an announcement last week that in 2 weeks, March 21st, we will have another event, but it is all centered around Copilot, Windows, and Surface. So I think it would be most beneficial to this group here. Hopefully you've kind of kept up to date with what's going on in the Copilot world, but it's moving so fast. And I think this is a testament. Again, we have another digital event. You can sign up or register for that at the link at the bottom there, but hopefully we'll see some good Windows announcements and Surface announcements as well. So yeah, make sure to join us, and we'll be sure to talk about it on the Endpoint office hours after that.
Garrett, I think what's really interesting about these two slides is that this one's like nice bright white, and then this one, when I saw it in the deck, I thought it was actually hidden because it's so dim.
Oh, it's so great. Yeah, so yeah. This is what the website looks like, and I just took a screenshot of the website because we don't have a promotional marketing slide for this.
I was so confused when I was going through the deck. I was like, what the? Why does this slide look like it's dim? How did he dim the slide but make it still invisible?
Yeah, no, that's just the website. If you click that website, it's going to look like this page on the screen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm just like... Yeah, so Richard, I'll kick it over to you. I don't know if you want to talk about any of those links specifically there.
Yeah, so lots of stuff since last week, or last time, I guess. For Intune, frontline workers are now getting a better experience from both Microsoft and Samsung. I'm not sure how many of you guys are dealing with frontline worker scenarios, but there's some collaboration that we've had with Samsung in the past. And so there's going to be a better experience with the manageability of the devices through Intune. So we've got some information there. Also, there's a new Tech Community Live session that's coming up. I don't have a date on it. Let me just click in here real quick. The date for this is on March 20th. So for Tech Community Live, this is an opportunity to talk with our engineering teams as they deliver some enhancements to the Intune service. So if you're interested in attending that, you'll want to do that for the session. We're looking at having some sessions around Mac OS management. That's going to be March 20th at 7:30 a.m., 7:30 to 8:30. Then we have Windows management with Intune. That'll be 8:30 to 9:30. And then 9:30 to 10:30. This will be enterprise app management and advanced analytics within the Intune suite. And then from 10:30 to 11:30, there's a cloud PKI session within the Intune suite as well. So if you want to go to those sessions, RSVP, and then you'll be able to get in on those. This is all happening on March 20th. For the Windows IT Pro blog, a lot of things were announced February 29th, and that's because we are effectively releasing the February 2024 moment for Windows. That just happened, I think on the 27th was when it was available for what we call seekers. So if you're a seeker, that effectively just means that you are going into Windows Update and you're checking for updates manually, and you'll have the capability to download and install new releases or new feature releases of Windows ahead of time. Now, for the February 2024 moment, it's not technically a feature release. This is just like what we did with the September moment and the prior February moment last year. So these are new features that get added through just regular cumulative updates. And so the February 2024 moment updates will actually be coming. The code was all done. People can seek for it, but it'll be default enabled. Those features will be default enabled in the March optional update, which is the third Tuesday. And then that will subsequently be available for everyone in the April Patch Tuesday. So it's end of the month we release, and then we make available to everyone the optional release, which is the third Tuesday, and then the second Tuesday of April is when everyone will get it. So it's kind of hard to keep track of all that stuff. But if you click into the link there, actually, you know what? I'm going to get out of sharing PowerPoint Live. I'm just going to share my desktop so we can go over this. It makes it a little easier. So stop that and go over here and get us into the deck here. So if we just click into this real quick, so I just want to call out a couple things. So some accessibility options that we're adding. One of the areas that we're going to be adding to Windows 11 is around voice access, and making it a bit easier for people to create shortcuts and various other things on using your voice to make it a lot easier to interact with the operating system. So you'll see voice shortcuts and the ability to access frequently used commands with your voice. So that's one of the big things that we've included. We're making it easier for sharing. So in terms of sharing content, you've had the ability in Windows to use nearby share, but we're also going to add the ability to display different applications for use with the share using options. So some improvements to sharing are being made, also some improvements to casting. So if you are going to cast things to other devices, we now will give you notifications to suggest the use of casting. I've actually seen this on the insider builds right now. I get prompted for, hey, do you want to cast this to, because it looks like something you're watching that would, and there's a TV nearby. Would you like to just cast this to that device? So it's going to be a little bit more leveraging AI and just understanding your where you're at to offer up those notifications. Have some improvements to snap layouts. And then Windows 365, there's some new features that we're going to make available, which there's another link that kind of goes into all of this. I've linked it also in the deck. But there's some improvements for Windows 365 Switch and Boot that I think are pretty useful. So you want to check those out if you're either looking at Windows 365 today or if you're currently using it. I think you'll be interested in what we're offering there. And then something that's always a sore subject, auto patch and so we're calling Unified Enterprise Update Management effectively auto patch Windows Update for Business. As we've talked about in the past, there combining things into just one term for Windows Auto Patch. Now, a lot of people get confused by this and think, oh, well, that just means that Windows Update for Business is now going to be Auto Patch. And as you start going through some of these announcements, and you might start to read blog posts and things, and you just might forget that Windows Update for Business, while it's being branded together as Auto Patch, in education, we obviously know that you don't have access to Auto Patch through A3 or A5 licensing. The way that you manage updates is not changing. So your Windows Update rings in Intune, that still works the way that it's always worked. That's not going to change. No one's taking that away from you. And then also, if you're using Windows Update for Business policies within group policy today, those policies aren't being taken away from you. We just decided that we're going to take the Windows Update for Business branding and merge that in together with Auto Patch. This doesn't mean, though, that we're still not fighting for Auto Patch in education. My team is still trying to get something for education. I have there's nothing to announce around this. I just want to make you guys aware, though, that we're still fighting for it, but there's nothing to announce around Auto Patch and EDU today. Now, for all of these features, like I mentioned, if you're a seeker, you could check for updates. The updates can apply to your devices today. However, if you want to test these out, what you can do is you can turn on the controlled feature rollout, or CFR. There's policies in Intune to do that. We've talked about this in prior office hours calls about how to do it. However, if you are interested in doing it, there are links in these blog posts that we've got in the deck that you can use to get there. So that's the February 2024 moment. So not a bunch of features that I think will impact IT admins, just little small things that we don't necessarily need to wait for a big full Windows release, which one will be coming later on this year. In the fall, we will have a 24H2. I don't know if we'll call it that, but most likely it'll be 24H2, and that will that'll be a much larger release with additional features. So the moment releases much smaller. Usually we can bundle them up in just a regular cumulative update, but the larger feature releases are still coming, so we'll have one of those this fall. As I mentioned earlier, new Windows 365 boot and switch features that are now available. You'll want to, again, if you're using Windows 365, take a look at those. We also have added Windows 365 Customer Lockbox is now generally available. So if you don't know what Customer Lockbox is effectively a way for you to control whether or not Microsoft support actually has access to your data within your tenant. And if you turn Lockbox on, then anytime a support engineer needs to make a request to get access to your data, a Lockbox request will come in, and you have to approve that request to allow them to do whatever they need to do from a support capacity. So we're now including the Windows 365 service within that, so that way if they need to get access to like a VM or something to troubleshoot on your behalf, they will need to put in a Lockbox request, and then you'll need to approve that so they can access the VMs. So that's now generally available. And then we're also, as with everything, we have skilling snacks for all sorts of things. We mention them all the time on this call. There's a new Windows Server security skilling snack that you'll want to take a look at if you want to get some professional development in securing Windows Server. And then lastly, on the config manager side of things, we don't talk about config manager as much as I think some of you guys might want, but a lot of stuff with config manager hasn't really been changing a ton. We've added a few new features here and there. We're still developing, and we're still rolling out new updates. But one thing that was posted last week was a deep dive around the cloud management gateway and how we and how our product team has, well, they've really just developed a deep dive look into how we do app registration and how the cloud components all work together. And so if you are using a cloud management gateway today and you just kind of want to know the nuts and bolts about how it works, Bala, he's our lead PM for config manager. If you've ever seen any of the release notes that get posted, he's the one that's primarily posting these. He went through and actually documented out him and a couple of our escalation engineers and our cloud solution architects, Herbert and Beatrice, they both went through and created this comprehensive guide on how the CMG works. So if you're really interested in that, super long deep dive in how this all functions. And get back to the deck. And with that, well, that's last week's. And with that, we've got open Q&A. Before we actually get into the open Q&A, one thing that I did want to call out is I posted in the team chat last night that there is a new update for the FFU process. So I released 2402.1 yesterday, and this is a pretty significant release. One thing that some of you have had challenges with is if you use the FFU process to download media on your behalf, effectively what it's doing is it's going to Media Creation Tool and it's just downloading the ESD file. When I originally developed that, it was actually downloading a pretty recent ESD because, as you guys probably know, if you go to volume licensing and you go download an ISO, the ISOs are updated every month. They're generally updated, I think it's like the third Wednesday or something like that. So every month there's a new ISO that's got the latest cumulative update built into it. But that's not the case with Media Creation Tool. It seems like we just like to update that whenever we want. And so the last update of the Media Creation Tool media for Windows 11 23H2 was actually in December. And now it's obviously March, and so we're about 3 months behind. And so my goal with this whole process is really to give you the most up-to-date media that you possibly could have. So if that means you downloaded an ISO from VLSC, you're going to have a relatively up-to-date ISO, but maybe you don't want to download the ISO every month. Maybe you just want to download one ISO. So what we've done in this new release is we now can update to the latest cumulative update. And so what this is doing, and it's not just the latest cumulative update, we're getting the latest .NET, latest Defender, latest version of Edge, latest version of OneDrive. And so what this is doing is it's going, for some of these things, it's going out to the Microsoft Update Catalog, and it's downloading, it's basically just scraping the URLs from there. So we do a search to find the latest cumulative updates. So I go grab the latest KB that we post on the Windows Health, the release health website. That gives me the latest KB. I do a search for the KB, and then I find it. But then .NET, I've got to find the latest .NET in a slightly different way, and that just does a search through the Microsoft Update Catalog. With Defender, we get the latest Defender definitions, but also the latest Defender platform update. And one thing that I noticed in the ISO, the latest ISOs, if you look at like, if you run the get MP computer status commandlet against just a stock ISO that hasn't touched the internet yet, Defender hasn't been updated since 2020. It's like that's 4 years old for the latest definition, or for the definition updates and for the platform update. So when it first comes to the internet, it's always going to get that stuff. But if you've ever tried to image Windows on a low end, like sub $400 laptop, you're hitting Windows Update to grab the latest Defender updates, to get .NET, to get the cumulative update. Edge is always out of date. And then OneDrive too. Like all of these things, when you boot for the first time, CPU spikes 100%. And a lot of it has to do with hitting all these things to update. OneDrive is really interesting because OneDrive actually updates in the user's profile. It's not a per machine app, which some people might think. It's actually updating in your own profile. So what we do with OneDrive is actually we download the latest OneDrive and then we install it as a per machine binary. So in this case, once that's updated, if you have students that are signing in, like the second student, third student, whoever it might be, we don't have to go and update the OneDrive that's sitting in their profile. We can just use the per machine OneDrive that has been updated for everyone. So by doing all of this, if you are using just the stock ESD for FFU, by getting it from Media Creation Tools, like doing that whole download, we now are actually able to update all of the components and give you like the most up-to-date thing that goes out. Now, I completely understand that things are always going to be updating. Like that's something that's always going to happen. But if you are in the process of imaging a bunch of machines all at once and then handing them out like the next day, which in some cases we see that happen for a lot of schools in the summer as they're getting ready for the fall term, you'll image everything, put everything on a bench, put everything in a multi-purpose room or whatever. You start just imaging left and right, and then you're handing the devices out on device delivery day. You might do that like the following week or the following day. You'll have the latest and greatest to give to the students right then and there. So we've added all that code to do all the updates. And then we've also added the ability now to, if you use provisioning packages with your FFUs, you manually had to copy. You had to make a folder for the PPKG, put the PPKG in there. Now, in your FFU deployment share, you can make the PPKG folder there, put your provisioning package in it, and then if you use the copy PPKG parameter and say true, it'll copy over that to your USB drive. We do the same thing for the unattend file and for autopilot JSON files if you're using autopilot for existing devices. So that's all been added too. There's been a new switch for compact OS. We actually compact the OS in every FFU. We've been doing that for a long time, but some of you might not want to compact the OS. The reason we do compact OS is because for low-end devices that have like 64 gig hard drives, any space savings we can do is good. So if you don't want to compact the OS, I put a switch in there. By default, it's still going to compact for everything. If you don't like that, then you can go ahead and just set compact OS to false, and then it won't do it. And there's just some cleanup stuff that we do for the ISOs, for the capture, the deploy, and the apps ISO. So a pretty big update. Highly recommend everyone download and update their files and go take a look at that. And with that, we are now open for Q&A. I don't know, Gary, if you see anything in the chat. A sub $400 laptop is called a Chromebook. Nowadays, yeah. We used to have some Windows devices sub 400. We might still do, but not as many. And then yeah, I get the links. Garrett, did you help them out with the links? You're on mute if you're talking. I don't know. You probably stepped away. All right, so I'm going to just kind of go from top down here, looking at Mike's question first. So is there any plan to add recent device user check-ins from Intune for Education to the regular Intune portal? It's pretty much the only reason my team and I go to Intune for EDU. It's a great question, and usually I always preface that anyone that says that's a great question usually means that they don't have the answer to it, so it's buying them some time to make up the answer. I actually don't have an answer for that. I wouldn't expect it to happen. It's something that we've asked the engineering team to incorporate that into full Intune. We asked a while back. There weren't any plans at the time to do it. But between that, and there are also some other things in Intune for Education that actually I think are pretty useful that kind of go unnoticed. But just for all of you guys that might be wondering what the heck I'm talking about. So what Mike's asking about is, if you go into Intune for Education, which if you've never done this before, you all have access to this. It doesn't cost you anything else. Even enterprise customers can go into this portal. Might not be all that useful for them, but the nice thing about Intune for Education is really that when you go into groups, we actually give you a hierarchical view of what your groups look like within Azure Active Directory or Entra ID. So you can go and see exactly how your groups are nested, which you can't easily do in Entra ID. In Entra, it's just like if you've got a nested group under another group, it's pretty difficult to look through all of that. But what Mike's talking about here is when you go look at a device, what's my latest checked-in device? Actually, it's all checked in. Okay. So check this device out. I can check here for recent check-ins, and this will tell me who recently checked in on this device, who the users were. So I've got a help desk user, I've got a dummy user, I've got Aldo. And so in here, he's saying, like, is there any plans to basically take this? Because the data's here. This data is in the graph. We could easily just take this and plop it into regular Intune and put that on the device object so you can see who checked in last. And being in education, we've got to deal with devices that get stolen a lot, or they just go missing. Maybe someone leaves it on a school bus, or maybe someone steals it and tries to pawn it off at a pawn shop or something. So it's nice to know who the last person was to use that device. And so this is an easy way to say, oh, well, the last person that was signed in that had a recent check-in was, in this case, in my environment, it's here this help desk user. So I can go and contact them and figure out what happened to that device. But what we also do in here is we actually create this report. And this device inventory report, I think is actually probably one of the best reports that most people aren't aware of, because you won't find this in full Intune. But what this does is it gives you a report on the name of the device, your serial number, who enrolled it, but then who the last signed in user was. Intune will tell you who enrolled it, but Intune's not going to tell you last signed in. So we can get the last signed in user out of this report, and then we also get the same last check-in date with Intune. So similar to what we saw at a per device level, we can actually get this at a much broader level and go and identify, so we can go download this report and then do whatever investigation we need to do if we're trying to figure out, like, hey, there's a bunch of devices that that have been stolen. Let's go find like who the last user was to sign in and check and just figure out what's going on with that device. We can find it and reclaim it. So again, Mike, I don't have a good answer for you here. I don't know that it's going to be added to full Intune. I wish it was, but for the time being, if this is some data that for any of you guys, if you're interested in this kind of data to help you guys track down machines, this is a pretty good way to do it within the Intune for Education portal. Let's see. Just trying to go through the chat here and see what we got here.
I think the next one is Matt's question on how do you recommend making a local user for kiosk logins? We're working on rolling out multi-app kiosk that is for Windows 11. I'm wondering if anyone else here is doing that yet.
Yeah, Matt. So I think I saw this. I think you posted the same thing in the team. So I saw it yesterday. Kiosk is a very strange experience in Intune. One thing that I've been doing is I've actually been using the assigned access CSP to handle this. So if we look in Intune, one of the use cases that we tend to get for kiosk scenarios is actually around Azure Virtual Desktop. And with AVD, what some people want is they have hardware that's been sitting in labs. They've had desktops that haven't. The desktop itself is probably end of life, but they don't want to get rid of the desktop because the desktop can still be repurposed as like a thin client effectively. So I want to use the desktop as a thin client to then use Azure Virtual Desktop to do the bulk of the processing. And so you would think that, okay, well, maybe I should be able to just make this like a kiosk and have it run the remote desktop app and then have it just be at the sign-in screen. Someone can just type in their creds and then they can get in and use Azure Virtual Desktop. And so we tried looking at that with the built-in kiosk functionality, and it didn't quite work the way we wanted it to. But one thing that we started then looking at is, okay, well, what if we were to just take the assigned access policies and maybe leverage those instead? And so what we came up with is, let me just try to get here. Just edit this. Put this in a notepad just so you can kind of see it. So in here we have an XML file that is using the assigned access configuration CSP. And so in here we can identify what our kiosk mode app is. And so the way that this functions is that there are these profiles that you create. And so the profile ID is effectively just some GUID. This could be whatever setting. If you just go to PowerShell, just type get GUID, it could just generate you a random GUID if you want. And so you just put your profile ID here, and then for your config down here, there's this default profile ID here. So this default profile ID basically goes and looks at this profile ID up here. So I could have multiple profile IDs in here. I could say like profile ID, this includes the remote desktop client. I could then make another, I could like copy this, paste it, and then make another one. And that would have a different profile ID. And then I could have different users in here. So I can say, depending on who signs in, your profile ID is this, and then you have to go and you would then jump up into here and run whatever app is defined here. So by doing this, what this effectively is doing as it stands right now is that there's an auto logon account for this account called AVD kiosk. So it just auto logs in with that account name. And then its profile ID is this GUID here, which maps to this. And it says, okay, for the kiosk mode app, we're going to use a classic app path, which in our case, classic app just means regular exe Win32 application that you're all used to. And in this case, it's going to run from program files, remote desktop, msrdcw.exe. And then so this is going to run that way. And so this works great for single app kiosk, because in Intune, and I know you're asking, I think, multi-app kiosk, but in single app kiosk, this is actually a bigger problem that we've seen in the education space, where customers are wanting to run Win32 apps, but in Intune, it won't let you do it. You have to actually use a store app. So if you are someone that's trying to use a classic Win32 app to do this, and you can't find Intune to do it, you'll probably need to do it this way. And I can share this XML and all that stuff in the chat afterwards. But this will allow you to do that. Now for multi-app kiosk, multi-app kiosk should actually work fairly well in Intune. Well, actually, I take that back. We recently added, no, in Win32, actually, Matt, for your scenario, have you tried the Win32 app multi-app kiosk with Intune yet?
Yes, we have done this with Windows 10, no problem. We are in our midst of migrating away from Windows 10 to Windows 11, including our kiosk boxes. They're multi-app. And so I followed the directions on Learn.Microsoft, built it out, and where the hangup is the local user, like throwing that local user, like for you on your notepad, I saw that AVD kiosk user.
Yeah.
Like, what is the best way to payload and get that on the box? Like, if I manually create the user that I'm pointing in my default profile and sign in with that user, which for my example, I called kiosk user, then I'm right in, the pinned apps work, it's awesome. But I'm trying to find that best situation or user management for the multi-app kiosk so that, again, I can tell a technician, you just have this machine, use this group tag, reboot, and it pulls up and sets everything. So it's kind of a zero-touch scenario.
So you're using this right here, local user accounts, and then you're passing the user account. Is that right?
So what I did is through the site, I built an XML file and I made a custom URI and I uploaded it and I assigned it to that group. And in there, the user is specified, but then I turned around and I used PowerShell with the script. I used a remediation to say, hey, if this user isn't here, drop this user on the box. But it's just not quite working. So I've been looking online to see what's the best way to get essentially a local user onto that Intune box so that I don't have to require my colleagues to also have to manually create a user and introduce some error into the workflow. Does that make sense?
So the creation of the user then,
is really, yeah, because the multi-app kiosk, which you're posting on Learn.Microsoft is great. And if you just step right through that, simple, easy. I've got Win32 apps working, no problem. So with that, it's just that, what's the best way to get that local, like for you, that AVD kiosk onto the box?
So I don't actually create this account. The auto log, it actually creates that for me with the assigned access.
Okay, I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, so awesome. This is not being created by me. So you may want to, so are you trying to use auto logon?
Yes, correct. So in my situation, these are going to be, for example, a card catalog in a library. Okay. So that each night the box just reboots at midnight, doesn't use maintenance, and when the students arrive in the morning, it's up ready to go on the web page for the card catalog. If they need to use one of the other apps, they can close out of that card catalog and back into one of the other needed applications.
Got it. Okay. So I posted that lovely XML in Teams. So I assume that when you try to copy and paste that out, it's going to be nice and ugly. That's usually how copy and paste in Teams works. But hopefully that might get you going on the right path.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, what else we got here? Is anyone okay? So Michael is the next question. Gary here. Michael Aldridge. I'm gonna assume so.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so. Yep.
Okay. So is anyone familiar with CSPs or CSP settings that cause issues during a user-driven pre-provision deployment? So autopilot. I'm seeing something went wrong error 5B4, nothing logs in. User-driven deployment looks fine with the same policy design. Not aware of anything. It's on my head. Trying to think that there may have been something. Here recently.
Are you experiencing any extra reboots with
No,
pre-provisioning?
no, I checked for there's no 2800 events logged.
Okay.
So we did have that problem with the Microsoft App Store CSP with the enterprise sys benchmark that we didn't know to use the Intune one first, or instead of the enterprise. So the enterprise had some settings that caused a reboot. Getting rid of those and doing the actual Intune sys benchmarks resolved that. So user-driven works fine, but user-driven pre-provision, consistent error every time on two machines, a Latitude 5420 and a Optiplex 7060. I've updated the TPM on both, and I don't think it's attestation issues because it does get enrolled in Intune. It does get policy. It's just at some point during the device setup, it errors out. And I haven't been able to figure out what. I can start excluding policies just to troubleshoot, but I was just curious if anybody had any experience with any particular CSP or CSP settings that may have caused them issues with pre-provisioning in the past. And if nobody knows, I completely understand.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything right now. Are you using the most up-to-date media?
I have a Windows 11 Education 23H2. It's a volume license ISO that we get here at the university. So I've been using that.
Okay. Yeah, so that media is refreshed. Like I was mentioning earlier, that media should get refreshed every month.
Mm-hmm.
So if you pulled it, recently, then you should be good.
Okay. I can ask our guy that has access to that to download the latest ISO and give that a try.
Yeah, I would just try to make sure just to rule out anything simple, like make sure you have the latest media.
Okay.
Because if there's any known issue that I'm aware of that would cause that.
Okay.
Alrighty. We have the same. Okay, Leaf's got the same issue. Library HR kiosks. PowerShell on the URI. Let's see. The Intune Education portal should show all devices from Intune, right? Yeah, Joseph. Intune for Education should show everything from Intune. Not sure why you'd only see 68 in Intune for Education. Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, not sure why.
But I would go ahead and put in a support ticket if you haven't, just through the portal itself, and let them know in case there's an issue. I don't think there's any known.
No, I mean it would. Yeah, it should show Windows and iOS devices, so you should see just those platforms. If you have other platforms,
there's no version limitation or anything like that. So
yeah, that's not expected if you're seeing those numbers.
Yeah.
That different.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to submit a support thing. I'd never logged into that before until you were showing it today, and I figured I'd just check for my laptop, and then when I couldn't find it, I was surprised to see only 68.
Yeah, no, that definitely shouldn't be the case. It should mirror what you're seeing in full Intune, because effectively it's it's really all the graph. Like if you wanted to create your own Intune portal, you can call it like Joseph's portal or whatever. You could, if you knew that code and you could do all that, like you could easily create your own. It's all just graph data and got to put it all together. So if we're seeing like 68 in one and 3,300 in the other, that's not what we would expect. So unless there's some weird filtering that they're doing, but I'm not aware of any of that. Okay, let's see. For AVD kiosk, we went with iGel. It was really the only It's gonna give a good one. Okay, so Dan's saying they went with iGel. Cost more than, yeah, and that's kind of the thing that I don't really like, is that customers are really going to iGel because they feel either that they have to, or that it's just too difficult to set up an AVD kiosk. So I've been trying to actually get our engineering team to see if we can make some sort of similar experience like Win365 boot, which will allow you to boot directly to a Windows 365 VM. But could we do the same thing with AVD? And they haven't really come back to me with an answer that they're going to do it. But for the time being, we've been able to get it to work with AVD kiosks. It wasn't easy. I'll put it that way. And so I think a lot of customers, if they try it on their own, they're just like, this is too complicated, it doesn't make any sense. Then they end up going with iGel. So
yeah, so like our use case is just basically like a library where any student could log in. We want it to go to a specific AVD pool, and then when they log out, it's a login for the next student. And the remote desktop app just doesn't seem to have any settings, and there doesn't seem to be any like configuration profiles you can apply to it. Like I tried monkeying around trying to force like RDP files into it, and you can maybe kind of get it to work. And there's all kinds of like, it wants to force you to sign in, and it's like, at one point, you just might as well just use a web browser and just use AKA, AVD web, seems to be an option. But then it's like, well, we got people with USB flash drives, and it's like, well, good luck trying to figure out how to upload something to a USB flash drive from the VM. So it's like, and it's not like iGel, the other providers are also have not very good and clean solutions for it either. So we're coming from VMware, where it's just a simple, like, there's a VMware client, you tell it what server to go to and what pool, and that's it.
Yeah,
That's kind of the experience we're looking for.
Yeah, it's a lot easier on that side of things. Okay, yeah, thanks for the feedback. That's it's kind of what I'm seeing as well. All right, so okay, I wish this in that case was not showing 60 right here. Multi-app kiosk works in Windows 11 now. Yeah, it's supposed to. I say supposed to. I haven't spent a ton of time with multi-app in Win 11, but Garrett just posted the link there for that. Again, if it doesn't work, if you try to set this up in Intune and it doesn't work, you may have to go the assigned access route with the XMLs, like we were talking about earlier. But as far as multi-app is concerned with Windows, they've got the support for it. Whether Intune can deliver the XML payload like the OS is expecting is another story. And that's kind of why we go this route of the XML files, especially like I mentioned with single app kiosk. You can't deploy a Win32 app in single app kiosk. That's why we use this assigned access XML to do it, is because the Intune UI just doesn't have the option for it. So let's go. There's a cut box. Okay, Dan Scott, this is the latest ISO. Okay. Since you mentioned config man, any recommendations on updating drivers on existing machines with Microsoft Endpoint Config Manager? Not in WinP, but in Windows itself. We are moving to Intune management in the future, but not there yet. So how do we do driver updates for existing devices? That's kind of a loaded question, because some vendors have their own utilities that you can deploy and run, and it'll scan and update. I'm actually kind of curious if anyone wants to say how they're doing it. I've got ideas on how you could do it.
I would love to, if you would like to hear.
Sure.
So we use the driver automation tool and the corresponding modern driver management PowerShell script. So modern driver, or the driver management tool to import drivers for known models, or any models, but we just do known models. They're created as packages in Config Manager, and then the corresponding modern driver management script goes in your task sequence, and that will run on the client, look to see what model it is, look in Config Manager to see if there's a matching driver package, and then download and install it. We do that during OSD and it can be done with a task sequence after the fact. The important thing to remember is that you are installing a driver package that could potentially be older if you don't keep it up to date by periodically running the driver automation tool and getting new versions of drivers installed. Like you mentioned, Dell Command Update, Lenovo System Update, those are other two possibilities. And then Windows Update for Business. Those are probably the three that I'm familiar with and that we use.
I've used that MS Endpoint Manager. I was the one that asked the question. I've used that the past one for, like you said, OSD, and now I'm at a new place and trying to do it within Windows itself. I've done all the configuration, all the PowerShell script and all that stuff they've done, but it's not ever inside the test sequence was inside Windows. It doesn't look like it's ever really connecting to the service. My understanding is you just have to set up the admin service, which is already there. You don't have to do the web service anymore.
That's
Do you
correct.
still have to do the, okay. Well, that's where I'm at. That's the route I'm trying to go. It's just not working. I'm not ever getting to the point where the MS Endpoint utility makes logs and stuff. So
Okay.
not sure what's going on there. But
if you want to send me a message, I can certainly take a look at what you got or answer some questions or help you out. I'd be happy to do that.
okay, I appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Michael. Thanks for the question, Tommy. And then just so everyone knows what they're talking about, on my screen here, I've got the modern driver management from the MS Endpoint Manager .com website. The contributors to this are some of our MVPs that have been working in this space for a while. This is actually a tool that's been around for about 4 years. So if you're interested in using it, then this is what it is. Looks like Scott's got his hand up. Scott, are you in a car? Where are you at? Endpoint Enigma. He's on mute is where he's at.
He can't take himself off mute while driving.
He's,
Safe driving practices, Scott.
well, he took his hand down.
Oh, there he goes.
That's got to be harder than unmuting yourself in Teams. He's not off. He's off
Here.
mute, but not off mute because I can't hear him.
No.
Oh, sorry, Scott. I'm gonna have to put you back on mute. Mute myself. Yeah, TSA is giving him a pat down. Yeah, that's probably true. His cell phone may have went through the security scanner. All right. Well, while Scott tries to fix whatever he's trying to fix, what else we got here? Oh, drivers. So one other thing for those that are just interested in drivers, we can also do some of this in Intune if you haven't seen it. I know we've talked about this in the past, but if you've never seen this, in Intune, you do have the capability to do driver updates. So we've changed the UI here. It used to be down in this list of managed devices that is incredibly long. It was even longer than this. Now we've consolidated all the Windows update stuff into one node that goes under update rings, feature updates, quality updates, and driver updates. And one of the things that we added to driver updates just recently was the ability to bulk update drivers. So now when you come into here, there's this bulk actions. I would have probably done this a little different. I would have just basically given you a bunch of checkboxes over here. You just check what you need and then deploy. We decided that you have to use this bulk driver action, which is kind of weird. But you click into this, you can approve, suspend, or decline multiple drivers. So in this case, you want to approve, you can make the date available. So select whatever date you want. And then we can select the drivers to include and then to just check the boxes. And then deploy them out. So it's a little different, but should still work. And then just save that, and there you have it. So I have some drivers that are being deployed out. So that's there now. That was added, I think, last service release. So you can do that with drivers now. So you all should have access to. If you have A3, you should have access to deploy drivers through Windows Update for Business This is using the Windows Update for Business deployment service. And so you just select the drivers and deploy them out. All right, Scott, are you back? No, he's not. Okay. And there's a question in the Q&A. Let's see. Oh, that's a different question for. Oh, everyone's trying to help. Okay, looks like you guys are trying to help them out with the chat, the Akash's question. Garrett.
Yeah, sorry, mine was taking a long time to load.
Yeah, for the Q&A. I was just wanting to make sure that everything in there was responded to. Okay. All right. Scott, we can't hear you, man. We gotta get your new cell phone.
I know. It's not even the cell. Can you hear me now?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Yeah, it must be this headset. It was the $40 Microsoft USB headset. So, no, I was just, I think you already answered the question by the time I got off mute. I was going to ask, is there any, well, I was just going to ask this of any of our participants. Any of y'all have deployed the driver updates from Intune? Like, are you using that feature set today? Whether they're co-managed or Intune only?
So Joseph says he is.
Yeah, what's your feedback on it? Has it done what you needed it to do? Could it be better? Just curious.
I would say it's a good first start. It definitely has some needs that I know when the engineer was in the meeting, I don't remember how many months ago that was. Basically, all the stuff he showed that was upcoming was all stuff that it definitely needs. Like we struggle with now, you see which drivers are needed, but you can't see which devices they're needed on, which is difficult, especially the firmware options. You have no idea what models they're for because, the vendors just put it in there as like Dell firmware, whatever version number, and you don't know. So, yeah, this bulk action could be better. I was just approving a handful of them the other day, and like you can't sort any of those columns. And
yeah.
And even if you could, like the column that I wanted to use that I thought was the most useful from the main list is the number of devices that it's required on, and it's not there for the bulk action.
Yeah.
So I would, like I said, so it's a good first start. I mean, it's better than the nothing or the just the all or nothing checkbox we had before. But
yeah, I think for me, it's like get rid of this bulk actions button and just give me the checkboxes here because I have all the information I need. Like I don't need the same information duplicated in a flyout on the right. Just give me the checkboxes here, and then I could just go ahead and deploy from here and get, if you want to fly me out on the right and give me a flyout for like my deployment, that's fine. But I've got all the info. I got the applicable devices and everything. And then you also can sort through this. So like you don't have to reinvent the wheel to do. Like I understand the suspend decline, but we could have done a little bit better there. So
I said the one other thing I think the reporting could probably use some help. Like I've got one that's approved that I've been tracking the number of applicable devices and it hasn't gone down, and I have no idea why it's not working anywhere because there's nowhere to find that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think reports are being worked on. I don't think. Do you have a Windows Update for Business reports configured?
What was update compliance?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Yeah, I don't remember seeing any drivers in there at all.
Yeah, I don't think I'm in a good setup right now for the reporting piece to show it, but there is a drivers area in there. Last I looked at it, it didn't have a ton of useful data there, but for me, I mean, I've got a number of devices now, so I've got drivers that are showing up here, but I'd have to go back and reinvestigate the reports to see if they're any better than they were. That's kind of why I was asking you to see if you actually have any data there that you might be helpful. But if you don't see anything there, then that's.
Yeah, I'm trying to go there right now to see real quick if there's anything for drivers in there. I guess there is a drivers update section but yeah, there's a few devices I see with alerts, but probably not the right number for. I mean, we've got one that has, one driver that's been a couple hundred applicable devices this whole time, and my update alerts is 23, so I'm gonna guess that's not all of them that are not doing the update that they should be.
Okay. Okay. Well, we are at time, and I see that Josh has a fairly long question here. I'll
I
answer.
think he was just responding
Oh,
to Leaf's question. Yeah,
Got it. Been good. I think we're all wrapped up.
I think so.
All right.
So thanks, Richard, as always, for
Yeah.
leading the call, and thanks everyone for attending. I know we're a little bit over, but if you are on spring break, keep enjoying spring break. If yours is upcoming, hope you enjoy it. And thanks for attending today's call. We'll get this posted to YouTube, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
See you guys. Take care. Have a good rest of your week.
Everyone.